back to another big hour here on the Steve Gruber Show. Traveling is always a challenge. Technology is great. Ivy usually knows exactly how to make everything work, and then Anthony figures it out as well. We troubleshoot it all. Anyhow, it's always I hate technology. I hate it. It's Free for All Friday. Glad to have you here. It's powered by the Patriot Mobile Common Sense Hotline, 877-310-9966. Thank God for Patriot Mobile. All they do, I've had Patriot Mobile for years now. And yes, I got my phone back, so thank God for a great team. We're not going to do the big three right now. We're just going to get right back into the phone calls because you've been so patient. We're going to start with Mike in Oklahoma. Mike, thank you for being on the line and on the show today. How are you? What's on your mind?
Well, sir, I'm concerned that the Congress is going to investigate the Biden cover-up, and it's my opinion that congressional investigations take too long and eventually go nowhere and are forgotten. It's my opinion that a special counsel needs to be appointed to investigate the matter.
I do not disagree with you. I think a special counsel, of course, they take forever too. You know, they're not exactly Speedy Gonzalez out there. But I think you're right. And if you have a special counsel, you will get to all the things. I think you start with a special counsel over the auto pen. Did he really know what was being signed? Did he authorize what was being signed? Does he support that? Because we don't actually know, Mike. That's the problem. Nobody knows. Was it something that Joe Biden wanted, or was Joe Biden asleep somewhere and his team's like, yeah, go ahead and fire that. Go ahead and fire that. I agree with you, Mike. My concerns are about these committees take forever. They subpoena people. They schedule it a month down the road or 2 months. Nothing ever happens. We need a real investigation. Mike, you're exactly right. Show me. John is in Michigan today. John, how are you today?
Good morning, Steve. I'm from the great Southwest, due west of you. I would like to talk about the Palisades nuclear power plant reactivation under Governor Whitmer.
First time ever.
I think this is unsafe.
First time ever that this has happened in America. Go ahead.
Yes. So what happens in when you have nuclear fission is neutrons are released. Those neutrons strike the pressure containment vessel, which is a high-strength stainless steel, and they realign the crystalline arrangement of the steel over time and make it brittle. Ductile steel is strong, brittle steel is not. They put plugs in when they first built the plant. These metal plugs are test plugs, and they take them out periodically and test them to see how much embrittlement has occurred in the steel. They're now down to, I think, 1 or 2 plugs or possibly no more plugs from when it was first built. So they have no more standard by which to test. And what they're doing is they're going to do what's called annealing. Annealing was developed in the Soviet Union, now Soviet Republic, and it's on different types of reactors than what we have at Palisades. This annealing process is treating the steel to high temperatures for long periods of time. And we're talking like 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in that vicinity.
What's your long-term concern here, John? I want to make sure we get through this real quick. What's your concern, that it's going to fail?
Okay. Let me get to the political side of it. It's a win-win for Whitmer, and here's why. If it works, and this will be the first plant in the United States that's been done on, she's a hero because she got the power plant back online for another 20 years or so. If it fails, we have our own nuclear Chernobyl in western Michigan, and you know what happens? Western Michigan gets depopulated. What is western Michigan? It's conservative Republican territory.
Conservatives. All right, John, greatly appreciate the input. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission is recommissioning that Palisades nuclear power plant, West Michigan. First time it's ever happened in American history. If you're not aware of the story, now you know. Let's go to Mike in Pennsylvania. Mike, how are you today?
Hey, good morning, Steve. Really enjoy your show every morning.
Thank you.
I just had a question, actually a favor to ask of you. When you're going to be on the plane with the president, if you could mention to him about the rain tax here in Pennsylvania. It's an issue that we've had since 2019. And
so you pay
we've been
tax on
fighting
rain.
it here. Yeah, well, what it goes back to an executive order that Obama signed back in 2010. It's Executive Order 13508. And what it did is it basically unleashed and and created bureaucracies that now tax us here in Pennsylvania for the rooftops that we have, the driveways,
Right. You're not the only
sidewalks.
place. It's done in places like Oregon as well. It's a crazy idea to tax the rain. It makes not a lot
Yes.
of sense. If that's a great question, and I don't know if I'll see the president today or not. We'll be on the plane together, but he'll have to come back, to take a few questions. He's been doing that a lot lately. I hope we get the opportunity. Usually, you get one question or two. I'll see what happens. But if not, I'm gonna pay attention to it, Mike. Interesting question. Terrible thing. Tax anything. All right. Paul is also in Pennsylvania today. Popular place apparently. Paul, what's on your mind?
Uh, you guys talk about the Chinese. What about up there when the Chinese army was in Canada? Does anybody remember that? Tucker
I
Carlson
don't.
had a big deal on that, and that was the last show I seen him on covering.
Well, the
Whenever they
Chinese
had the
have taken
Chinese
up
up there in
residency just about
Canada.
everywhere. Yeah, I'm going to look into that, Paul, and
You
find
know, I
out
can't
what I
hear
can.
you, Jeff. I mean, Steve.
All right.
Hello?
No, it's all right. Yeah. I'm hearing you fine. Just check with him. Brock, maybe we can get him back another time. All right, Cynthia in Texas. Cynthia, how are you today?
Good morning. Beautiful day in Texas. I'm
Aren't they
calling
all?
in regard to the congressional hearings in D.C., and I'd like to
All
see
right.
the rules changed where all these opening statements are only relative to the topic and the witness at hand, and just ask questions and stop grandstanding and propagandizing
Wouldn't
and
that be
stating
nice?
the opinions of the people that are supposed to be interviewing. It's such a waste of time, and valuable
Isn't it,
witness
though?
information could be
Yeah. Look,
exchanged.
Cynthia,
And
I agree with you.
also,
I
just to
think all of
know,
America agrees with you. Thank you for the call because look,
right,
these
and just to know
politicians
a
get out there.
comment,
All they do
right,
is,
and
they grandstand. They give political speeches. I reclaim my time. Witness tries to answer a question. I reclaim my time. Everybody's sick of it, Cynthia. You are exactly right. Thank you for the phone call. Wouldn't it be nice to watch a hearing where actually a question was asked and somebody actually tried to answer it without somebody trying to grandstand? We're going to get to James in North Carolina. We're going to close it out here with you, James. What's on your mind? You got about 30 seconds.
I just wanted to thank you for all that y'all do and ask a question about the propaganda rule that got canceled, I believe, under Obama. And I wanted to
It
know
did.
who and why, and wonder if you could ask Trump to reinstate it so that people could have some faith in what the government is telling us.
Wouldn't that be something? I think the same can be said for the national news media, which has embarrassed itself time and again. No question. Hey, greatly appreciate all the phone calls so far. We'll try to fit in a few more around the edges here. We got some folks coming on. Some guests are going to appear with me for the next little bit here. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Remember, follow on X, follow on Truth Social, follow on Instagram, follow on Facebook. Make it a movement. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it now. My next guest is a retired Air Force Colonel, Rob Maness. He's been on the program a number of times in the past. He's down there on the Gulf Coast. And we were going to talk about a couple of other things, but in the break here, he brought something to my attention that I just can't ignore this morning. Rob, nice to have you back on the program.
Hey, good morning, Steve. It's good to be with you.
You know, and we haven't talked about election integrity in a while, but you've got something going on right there where you are that I think deserves some attention, and that is you said that the Democrats, Stacey Abrams and street preachers and other people bust in and paid for, by the way, are there trying to influence a race for mayor, if I'm not mistaken. Mayor of what town? What is going on, Rob?
Yeah, my city is Gulfport, Mississippi. I'm on the Municipal Republican Executive Committee, so we certify candidates and check voting machines, certify those for security and everything. And the Mississippi chairman of the GOP, Mike Hurst, came down to the city day before yesterday, had a press conference with all of us, and revealed that they have made at least 2 credible allegations of vote buying by the Democrats. Stacey Abrams has come in and brought national money and national political action committees into this race for mayor against a fine gentleman named Hugh Keating, is our Republican candidate that's been doing public service for many, many years here. Is very
so hold on. Let me ask you a couple things. Hold on. How big a city is Gulfport, Mississippi? Because I'm not sure. I've heard of it, but I don't know that I've been there. How big of a city, and how blatant is this vote buying effort?
Well, it's the largest city on the Gulf Coast here, and quite frankly, Steve, the Democrats know that if they can get Gulfport to go, then they'll sway the rest of the major cities on the Gulf Coast and throughout the state of Mississippi. That's why we've come out and challenged this vote buying scheme. We have actual proof of it. You can see it all over X. We've even got voters on video being handed food vouchers after they come out of City Hall where they're doing early voting, as the press conference that Chairman Mike Hurst was doing. And just yesterday, State Attorney General Lynn Fitch published a letter that she sent to the mayor's campaign for the Democrats and their political action committee, saying we are investigating thoroughly these allegations of criminal vote buying here in Gulfport, Mississippi.
Wow, that's quite something. I would say it's something that should be addressed. Look, it's something that Donald Trump has talked about, obviously, since 2020. And the more you learn about 2020, the more you realize that it was not on the up and up in my place. You know, there are certain organizations, Epic Times, you know the Epic Times, of course.
Yes.
They never called the 2020 election. They believe, the people that run that news operation, of course, they're connected to former Chinese citizens and so forth, believe that the Chinese Communist Party had an undue influence in 2020 in a variety of places around this country. Then I hear about Stacey Abrams and these other folks. You know that a lot of the funding, I'm not saying, I don't know about her specifically, but a lot of the funding flows from the Chinese Communist Party to these organizations to do exactly the kind of mischief that you're talking about. And it goes beyond mischief, Rob. It becomes outright felonious behavior, doesn't it?
Yeah, and quite honestly, it's pretty stunning. You know, I watched a preacher confess on live television that he was doing these food vouchers, and the vouchers are very clear. It says, go vote on it. You're going to get a free meal at these restaurants. You go to the restaurants that they're using, and there are signs on the doors of the restaurant saying, here's what you get for going to vote and getting this food voucher. It's amazing that they think it's okay when it's a blatant violation of Mississippi state law and election
And what do you
law.
say to people, Rob? Because look, this idea, this notion, this propaganda is the word. Oh, there's no vote fraud in America. Oh, that's just misinformation. Look, I've heard of Huey Long, the governor of Louisiana. I've heard of the Daily Machine in Chicago. I know about the machines in New York and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. Come on. Vote fraud is as old as the Republic. It is. I mean, everybody knows that Lyndon Baines Johnson rigged the primary election in 1948 to become the Democrat candidate to become the senator of the state of Texas. He rigged it. It's well published. It's well documented. This is not something, it's not even a stretch. And yet, you say this to most Democrats, like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You know it. Please, please, Rob.
Yeah, the great news is we have really strong voting laws here in Mississippi. I actually vote on a paper ballot, gets put in a secure box when it gets counted, so it's auditable. But
Yeah.
Any of these digital electronic machines that do scanning or vote tabulating have to be suspect at this point, especially with the Chinese. I don't know if you know what's going on in South Korea, but my friend, retired Colonel John Mills, is over there looking at the South Korea election,
Oh, I'm
and they're
yeah.
seeing all kinds of things going on with the voting
Massive
machines. It looks
fraud.
like they're manipulating numbers and almost in real time, from what I gather.
Almost in real time. Gordon G. Chang was on the program here earlier this week, obviously an expert on China, and talking about the South Korean problem. And if they rig that election, South Korea becomes nothing more than a vassal state for China. I mean, look, Vietnam's not that far away already. You look at all the states in the shadow of China, and you have to say we're in real trouble. I'll give you the last word on this, but what you've underlined here is the Chinese infiltration, not just of South Korea, not just of Vietnam, but of this country. This country. And if you don't believe it's happened and is continuing to happen, you're not up on what's really true in this world. I'll give you the last word.
I would just ask folks to remember, get everybody you know to go out and vote, especially here in Gulfport next Tuesday, June 3rd, because overwhelming the system with more votes than they can keep up with is the way to beat it at this point until we get everything fixed.
Amen. It's just too big to rig. I think I heard that somewhere. Too big. Who
Yes,
said
too
that?
big to rig.
Somebody said that somewhere, as I recall. Rob Mattis, always appreciate you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, it's the Steve Gruber Show. We'll take a break and be right back. Don't go anywhere.
That's not validation of anything. So,
Give you that.
you heard this one?
All right, welcome back to it. Nice to see you here. They just asked me if I'm at the White House this morning. I don't know. You'll have to check on that. I don't know.
That's fine.
Anyhow, live broadcast. Ain't it great? I love it. So here's something for you. Comes to me from my good friends at TMZ, Harvey Levin. You know who he is, right? You know who that guy is, right? You know who Harvey is. Yeah. He's got a beard now, looking a little older. But he says that a bunch of these celebrities in Hollywood are getting lawyered up because they do not want to testify in the Diddy trial. They don't want to be anywhere near the Diddy trial. Did he? Of course he did. But nobody wants to be anywhere near that courtroom. Good Lord. Talk about, getting slimed because you're in the neighborhood. Yeah. So these guys are lawyering up. Yeah. And Anthony thinks that maybe I should lawyer up. Could you imagine you were at a freak off and all of a sudden they have a tape or a picture? Hey, can you come on in? They're going to blast that picture in the courtroom. you talk about career is over. Good Lord. That'd be a problem. If you're looking for something important to do this weekend, instead of just watching Netflix and bed rotting, as they say, how about you do some real binge watching of cool stuff at Hillsdale College? You want to learn about the Constitution, the Founding Fathers, the Declaration of Independence, Christianity, and how it helped form this country? How about something about C.S. Lewis or capitalism? They're all free courses at Hillsdale. I've been watching them in the production quality. I got to tip my hat to these guys. It is first class. You want to binge watch something and come out there and go, I didn't know that. Oh, that's interesting. They did that for that reason? Yeah, gruberforhillsdale.com. Gruberforhillsdale.com. And by the way, we got some video excerpts starting next week, I believe. Ivy's talking to folks at Hillsdale, so we can show you little clips about some of the things that we're learning. Yeah, binge watch and make it worth your while. Gruberforhillsdale.com. I'll be right back. All right, continuing special coverage from Washington, D.C. this week. I'll be back in the regular studio on Monday, but only for a couple of days. I have to come back to the White House Wednesday of next week. My next guest normally here, and I'm normally there. We Well, we switched roles this week. Congressman Tim Walberg is with me, but he's in district in Michigan while I'm here in Washington, D.C. Congressman, nice to have you back on the program.
Well, it's good to know we have a competent person in D.C. right now. Glad to hear
Somebody
that.
has to watch the place. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I don't know where to begin today. Maybe I'm going to start here because it is so frustrating. The people that communicate with me and send me emails and social media and so forth, man, they're frustrated. Everything that Donald Trump is trying to do gets blocked by some court somewhere. The most recent being a court I had never even heard of on these tariffs. This international trade court. I'm like, wow, there's something new I'd never heard of. Now it got overturned yesterday afternoon. It gets blocked on Wednesday, overturned Thursday. But whether it's the border, the budget, you pick it. There's like 200 injunctions and lawsuits and legal action against this administration. Maybe I'm wrong, Congressman, but it seems to me when 77.5 million people vote for some individual to run the country, they actually expect that to happen, not get blocked by every single thing he does by some radical court. It's frustrating.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And if you look at the statistics of the number of court cases that have been brought against this president, it rivals, or I guess I should put it this way, it is rivaled by no president in history. And it, in fact, isn't rivaled by a multitude of presidents combined in history. And it
Right.
again shows what those of us who are conservatives and who believe in the Constitution and believe in the rule of law done appropriately, that the only way that the liberals can handle affairs right now is through the courts. They will not use the normal process. Regular order isn't in place. They disrupt what can go on in Congress. That's why we have to do a big, beautiful bill through reconciliation, is because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats will just simply block everything with that 60-vote requirement. And so here's a president who says, I am going to do what 77 million people told me they wanted me to do, because I didn't lie to them. I told them what I'd planned, and they were aggressive plans, and they still voted for him, massive numbers. And so the Democrats say, we'll stop it through the courts. And we have judges who are as liberal as the day is long, who don't believe in the reality of what America is with separations of powers, with the limited powers that they have in the courts and the Constitution. And they are limited, and yet they know that they can frustrate what goes on by making these rulings. So Trump generally wins. If you look historically, what's been going on, he eventually wins in almost all the cases where those court cases initially go against him, with some district judge trying to do his will on the country and never running for office to do that through the courts.
And I'd like to say, Congressman, that I trust the Supreme Court if some of these cases get there. I don't, though. I trust two justices, Alito and Thomas, and after that, it's a crapshoot every single day on the nation's high court. Yeah. The liberals like to call it a conservative 6-3 court. That is not true, to be honest with you. All right, so let's talk about, you mentioned the one big beautiful bill, getting a lot of pushback from Rick Scott, the senator from Florida, Ron Johnson from Wisconsin, Rand Paul from Kentucky, and right now, unless a lot of the spending cuts or the spending is cut, they're not going to vote for this. It's not going to make it through. Do you think they can find an accommodation? Can they cut enough of the spending? Because they claim that it would add $2 trillion to the debt each year for the next 10, pushing our national debt to close to $60 trillion. What do you say to your Senate colleagues who are saying, we're not voting for this, not like this?
Well, I'd say to them, find me the votes. I wanted to see more cuts in the great big big beautiful bill as well, but 218 votes are needed. And unlike the Senate, where there is no senator that truly represents, well, maybe Collins to some degree, but no senator who represents a Democrat district. Let me put it that way. There are plenty of Republicans in the House who right now represent districts that went for Biden in the last election, and yet we have them here in the House voting Republican. Let's put it that way, voting Republican at least 75, 80% of the time, whereas a Democrat in that seat would be voting 0% of the time with us. So that's what we contend with. A senator doesn't. All of those states represent, since they represent entire states, are states that are Republican states. And so Rick Scott and others, Rand Paul is lost to us, but Rick Scott and others who are Ron Johnson have to understand if they want to force their will, we will get nothing. And I don't think nothing is appropriate this time. And if you look at CBO and understand that they don't do dynamic scoring, that's why they can say this will produce that type of deficit. If it will, there's a question. But if it does, it's because they won't take into account the growth of the economy that can spend down the deficit and spend down the debt as well. And probably that's the best way, the old-fashioned way.
Let me ask you one other thing this morning, because it is incredibly important to the listeners here. And the other big complaint that I hear recently, in fact, it might be the number one complaint I've heard recently in the last week, is that they are upset that the Doge cuts put forth by Elon Musk have not been brought to the House floor for a vote in the House. And they're mad at Speaker Johnson for not codifying Doge cuts. I can see their frustration. Can some of these things be brought to the House floor? Can it not be done? What would you say to address the concerns of people, not just in your district, but across the country that are like, hey, why can't we get this voted on?
Well, they have. They have got voted. A number of them have been voted on in the big, beautiful bill. We put them in there. And so the information that's going out unchecked that we haven't done what the president pushed forward is just false. Have we done everything that he's pushed forward? No, we can't. Some can't be done in reconciliation. Some will have to be done the normal process, and that would mean 218 votes in the House, which I think we could get, and we'll be seeing more of those put through. But they'll also have to understand that the Senate will not pass those. Chuck Schumer will not pass those.
Yeah, there's the problem. Right.
That's
they
the
won't even
problem.
let it,
so we have to do it the best way possible. And right now, reconciliation, which you can only do based upon spending issues and taxation issues, it can be done through reconciliation, but at one time and in only a certain way controlled by the Senate parliamentarian in the end. And that's a challenge. But we have done a significant number of the Doge cuts already through reconciliation wherever we could. And now it just comes down to the American public
finishing it,
the 4 years. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate you answering that. That's one of the big complaints I've heard from folks, and I appreciate you addressing that. Some of it's going to happen in the big, beautiful bill. Some will happen outside of the bill, but they'll take a shot at all of it because we need to stop spending the way we do. Right. Congressman Tim Walberg, always appreciated. Enjoy the district, sir.
Love being in the district and enjoy Washington, but don't drink the water.
The Kool-Aid, as it were. Fair enough. All right, we'll take a break and be back on the Steve Gruber Show. Welcome back to the program. Glad you're here. Look, the economy doing better than I think most people expected at this point. Inflation down to 2.3%. You've got last month's jobs number, 177,000 new hires. That puts to the total 345,000 new jobs since Donald Trump came into office at the end of January. It's all very good news. Looks like things are going well in the Middle East on his journey as well. So joining me now is Tom Colson from Liberty Coin Service. Tom, nice to have you back on the program.
Good morning, Steve. Nice to see you.
Some good indicators. Now, the last time we spoke, gold was scratching right there at about $3,500 an ounce. It has cooled. It's just over $3,100 as I look at it today. It's cooled some. With all of this good news, the stock market has rebounded nicely. We're back, I guess, November 5th, 2024, overall on the market. That doesn't mean everybody's recovered everything, but things are looking better as a result. Gold is cooling off a bit. That's what I see. What can you tell us?
Yeah, that's true. I suspected when we were moving towards 3,500, that was getting a little bit peaky. So I'm not surprised at all to see it cool down a little bit. That said, we're close to 10% off of where we were for our intraday high. I don't think gold's just going to fall off a cliff here. I think there's still plenty of reasons for the price of gold to be strong, but the removal of some of the uncertainty that we've gotten here, temporary restraints on some of the tariff activities as well, seems to have knocked the price down a little bit.
Right. Now, one of the things we had talked about the last time you were here, and I know you remember this, you said, look, if it breaks 3,500, it could go to 4,000. If it does that, maybe not a good thing, because you said that would make the dollar look to be in peril. Okay, so that didn't happen. It has come down to, like I said, 31 and a half-ish. Might come down to 3,000 maybe. We'll see what happens. But that upward trajectory is not there anymore, which I think to you is like, that's good. Everything's kind of calming down. That's what I'm taking out of this conversation.
Yeah, well, it might be a boon for our business to see the price of gold explode like that. I think it would be much better for the economy in general that it didn't. And I think it's a much better world if we don't have that situation happening.
Right, that's what I'm saying. You don't want the dollar to get pummeled because, coming up in July, they're having this BRICS summit in Rio where they're going to try to replace the dollar, of course, that being Iran, Russia, China, Brazil, and so on and so forth. At any rate, so things are looking good. Where do you expect gold to be then? It's unsettled, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know what the bottom is yet. Like I said, I don't think we're going to fall off a cliff here. We might test 3,000. We might even drip a little bit below that, maybe 2,800, but I don't see it going back to where it was a year ago in the low 2000s. I think there's still plenty of reasons, and I think that the price of gold can support this rate. And I also think there's a number of reasons in the market. Still enough uncertainty that buying gold,
sure,
just as a hedge makes sense.
If it goes under 3,000, I think that's what you call a buyer's opportunity, potentially, based on everything we've seen thus far. Let's move on to some coins. Remember, you can always send us coins and collectibles, coins at stevegruber.com, the place to send in the stuff that you might find in the dust in your pocket, or the little dust bunnies under your bed. You might find a coin and say, hey, what's that worth? Well, send it to us here. Coins at stevegruber.com, plus collectibles could be baseball cards or other things, because Tom, through the course of his career, has probably seen it all. So the first coin is a cool coin. It's an Indian head cent. I like these. I own a few myself. This one caught my attention. It has a San Francisco mint mark, I noticed. Tom, what can you tell me about this?
Yep. So that's a 1908 San Francisco mint Indian cent, very popular series to collect. They only made Indian cents at the San Francisco Mint for 2 years, 1908 and 1909. And those are the only years that they weren't made anywhere other than Philadelphia. So it's a little bit scarcer. You've got a coin there that looks like it's a nice fine, and retail that's worth about $100, just because it's not a particularly common date.
So if it was let's say a 1906, obviously not made in San Francisco, what's an ordinary Indian penny worth?
One that was identical to that, but from the Philadelphia Mint, maybe $1.50.
So that's it. So it's $100 worth compared to $1.50. Well, that's pretty significant. All right, this next coin caught my attention because the next coin to me is interesting insofar, obviously it looks like of British heritage. It's also got writing on the edge. Tell me about what I'm looking at here.
So that's a round pound. It's a British 1 pound coin. They actually quit making those probably about 7 years ago. because they were being so extensively counterfeited, and the counterfeits were good enough that it was hard to tell them apart from the genuine ones, that they switched to a new style. But
Really?
yeah, that's the old style of round pound. They're no longer redeemable in Great Britain, other than I think you could take them to central banks and get some kind of credit for them, but you can't spend them in commerce anymore. There's not really any collectible value to them. But it is interesting that they basically had to switch that type because so many of those were being counterfeited.
Mass produced and worth nothing at all. The old round pound sent to the dustbin of history. Apparently. All right. I'll accept that. By the way, the Indian penny came from Wayne in Illinois. The round pound came from Laura in New York. Thank you, Laura. And from Enzo in North Carolina, we get this 1970 Washington quarter. Looks like a billion quarters I've had in my pocket, but Enzo wanted to know what this was worth. Not sure why. Tom, what do you got?
Well, you got a 1970 Washington quarter there, actually quite well worn for one of those, so that's kind of unusual to see. But it did its job circulating. It's from the Philadelphia Mint. A lot of people lately have been commenting that if a coin doesn't have a mint mark, they think it has extra value, and that's not really the case. It just means that it was made at the Philadelphia Mint.
Did Philadelphia ever put a P on any of their coinage?
They did, but they didn't start doing that until 1980.
Okay.
So anything before that from Philadelphia Mint does not have a mint mark, other than the one exception of the wartime nickels from 1942 to 1945.
So but that's the only mint that doesn't put a mark on it, right?
Correct. Other than, well, West Point does make some coins and basically doesn't put a mint mark on them as if they were made at the Philadelphia Mint, but they also do that as well.
See, this is why we have Tom here. He knows things. Tom Colson from Liberty Coin Service. Again, if you've got a coin or a collectible, you want to give it a shot, send it in here to the program like Wayne and Laura and Enzo did. Coins at stevegruber.com. Send it along. Tom will sort it out, and I'll just give you a parade call as it goes by. Tom, thank you as always, my friend.
Thank you, Steve.
There you have it. Again, Liberty Coin Service. Find them online. They're a national service. They can help you out. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Time now to check in on sports with Brock Palmbush.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. It'll be a rematch of last year's Stanley Cup final as the Edmonton Oilers finished off the Dallas Stars 6-3 to take Game 5 of the NHL's Western Conference Finals last night in Dallas. Oilers win the series 4-1. Connor McDavid had a goal and an assist for the Oilers. Edmonton will host the Florida Panthers next Wednesday in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final. The New York Knicks forced a Game 6 of the NBA's Eastern Conference Finals with a 111-94 victory over the Indiana Pacers last night in New York. Jalen Brunson led the Knicks with 32 points. Pacers still lead that series 3-2. Game 6 tomorrow night in Indiana. In Major League Baseball, only 5 games yesterday. Philadelphia and Atlanta split a doubleheader. Toronto, Tampa Bay, and Washington were also victorious. And in golf, Ben Griffin shot a 7-under par 65 to take the first-round lead at the Memorial Tournament in Ohio. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right. Well, here we go. Every day, it's lawfare. Every day, it's lawfare. But Donald Trump yesterday said, you know what, I'm not interested. He sued CBS News for deceitfully editing the Kamala Harris interview last year, as you know, before the election, as she had turned a giant blabbering word salad response. And CBS, well, they edited it in such a way to make it look as if she was coherent and intelligent. She was neither. Well, so Trump sued CBS News. They were offered $15 million to settle. They said, no, thank you. The case will continue. They want at least $25 million in a mea culpa. The attempt was originally a $20 billion lawsuit. The legal team demanding $25 million and an apology from CBS. They've even floated the idea of another lawsuit against the company. Trump's settlement rejection reported by the Wall Street Journal. He said, no, we're not taking $15 million. We'll take $25 million and an apology from you clowns. Look, this is not Mike Wallace's 60 Minutes, I'll tell you that. It certainly is not. All right, we'll take a break on this Free for All Friday. Thank you for being here. 877-310-9966 if you'd like to join the conversation after the break. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, welcome aboard as we continue on a free-for-all Friday, coming to you live from the nation's capital here in D.C. I'll be returning back to the home studio for Monday's program and Tuesday, but then back to D.C. as I'll be back at the White House for a couple of days next week. It's going to be a good part of the routine going forward, apparently. We'll be in Washington a lot more, creating those relationships that give you better information all the time. We want to have the access to the best possible sources for news for you so that you're on the front lines. Now, today, Elon Musk and Donald Trump are holding a press conference happening about 1:30 here at the White House. I'll not be able to be there today. I'll be at Joint Base Andrews, readying a flight on Air Force One to go with the president to Pittsburgh. Busy day it's always a busy day for the president. I don't know that the man rests. And one of the ways you know that he's in the West Wing is because there are United States Marines posted outside whenever he is. They're there almost continuously when I'm on the North Lawn of the White House there. But the Doge staffing shakeup is happening. Elon Musk tipping his hat, leaving his position at Doge. A lot of people, as we've talked about over the last many days, frustrated that these Doge cuts to spending, going after waste, fraud, and abuse have not been codified by the United States Congress, and Speaker Mike Johnson has not been quick enough to get these things out in front of folks for them to be voted on. You can't save $1 trillion or $2 if you don't actually put it into the law, right? And with all these activist judges stepping in the way of all the things that Donald Trump wants to do, every step of the way, whether it's spending cuts, not funding Harvard when they have anti-DEI or anti-American DEI programs, closing the border, making sure that people that come here illegally don't get to have children here and then call them Americans, and so on and so on and so on. All of these things blocked. But here's one win. Supreme Court has limited judges' authority to block infrastructure projects over environmental concerns. So at least when it comes to social or environmental justice, a win for this president and future presidents. Justices say courts must defer to agencies unless their decisions fall outside a broad zone of reasonableness. It's kind of a big deal. The Supreme Court Thursday limited the authority of judges to block infrastructure projects because of environmental concerns. Not your lane. Not your lane. The justices handed down the lone decision Thursday, 8-0, by the way. So it came from the case 7 County Infrastructure Coalition versus Eagle County. It relates to the National Environmental Policy Act and the requirement for environmental impact statements in infrastructure projects supported by the federal government. NEPA does not allow courts, under the guise of judicial review of agency compliance with NEPA, to delay or block agency projects based on the environmental effects of other projects separate from the project at hand. So wrote Brett Kavanaugh. Courts should afford substantial deference and should not micromanage those agency choices so long as they fall within a broad zone of reasonableness. Kavanaugh went on to say that agencies should not be expected to consider the environmental impact of any project aside from the one they are currently working on, even if the environmental impacts might extend outside the geographical territory or the project or materialize later in time. The fact that the project might foreseeably lead to the construction or increased use of a separate project does not mean the agency must consider that separate project's environmental effects. Again, 8-0. Neil Gorsuch took no part in the consideration of the case. John Roberts, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Amy Coney Barrett joined with Kavanaugh's opinion. Sonia Sotomayor filed a separate concurring opinion onto which Justices Kagan and Brown Jackson came on board, of course. So, activist judges. Everywhere you look, activist judges. Everywhere you look. All right, let's continue on with some other things. The truth about Democrats in 2025. They don't care how they stop Donald Trump. They don't care how much they go against the will of the people that voted for Donald Trump. They don't care. Your vote is irrelevant to them. Your opinion is irrelevant to them. Your view and your opinion of what the future of America should look like. No relevance to them whatsoever. How do I know? Well, listen to this.
Now at Crew, we have 152 open legal matters against the Trump administration since January 20th. We filed the first one at 12:01 p.m. We want to file the very first lawsuit. I had somebody listening on their iPhone to the swearing in and standing at the GSA to drop a complaint on them about the Trump Hotel. Just compelled by circumstances. And when Trump is ejected, as I believe he will be, then I'll help stitch up some of the damage, and I'll go back to book writing.
There you go. All right.
There's Norm Ice.
America
hater. Norm Ice, an America hater. What did he say? 170, whatever they have. The first lawsuit he dropped against the Trump administration, 12:01 p.m., January the 20th. 1 minute after Donald Trump became president, they filed a lawsuit. 1 minute. Remarkable. Democrats are in big trouble, though. They're losing certain demographics, especially young men. I mean, what does the Democrat Party have to offer a young man in America today? What do they have to offer? You can play in women's sports. You're toxic because you're masculine. What do the Democrats offer young men in America today? Anything? No. Mickey Sherrill is running for governor. She's a member of Congress, a Democrat, and they're panicked about young men. I know because she said so. Listen.
I think maybe the place to start is on the ground. Maybe the place to start is by actually speaking to real people. Look, I talk to young men all the time. I'm raising 2 of them. And I can tell you exactly what's going on. I think people want to be heard. I think there's a real concern for the future of this country, where we're headed, and a sense that in too many ways, the Democratic Party hasn't been listening very well to people. It's been sort of telling everyone what we're going to do instead of starting on the ground, which is why I think the governor's races we have going on, I'm running here in New Jersey, we have Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. I think these governor's races are really important because we can build the party from the ground up and not the top down. It's how I've always run, building broad coalitions. I'm listening to hundreds of New Jerseyans a day as I go around the state, and I can tell you that is how you understand where people are at. That's how you understand the hopes and the dreams and the concerns and the fears of people, and that's where I'm starting,
good
and that's
Lord,
where I think
make
the
us
party
the
should
hopes,
start.
the dreams, the aspirations, blah, blah, blah. Good grief, shush. Just shush. The fact of the matter is, did she offer anything there for young men? Zero. Of course, that's all the Democrats offer anybody. It's just more obvious to young men that there's nothing there for them to get out of Democrat leadership except despair, destruction, poverty, bankruptcy, weakness. Nothing for young men or anybody else for that matter. It's the Steve Gruber Show on a Free for All Friday. I'll be right back. All right, welcome back to Washington. I'm going to miss the Elon Musk, Donald Trump press conference happening 1:30 at the White House. I'll be over at Joint Base Andrews, being cleared to fly on Air Force One later today. You heard me talking about that. I'd like to be in there. I got a lot of questions for Elon. I mean, why so disappointed? Why so disenchanted? Oh, yeah, it's Washington. You thought you could come in and make things happen fast. He did it. He did his best, but we'll see what happens. Anyhow, join me now, the best-looking, most talented, most intelligent attorney in the history of the world, Steve Doolin, is with me. Doolin, good morning.
Good morning, Gruber. I'm just trying to keep up with you, man.
Yeah, well, we do the best we can. So, trying to keep up. That's a good way to start here today. In the last 36 hours, 3 injunctions or 4 issued against Donald Trump. They involve tariffs. They involve whether or not the federal government has to pay Harvard. It involves Venezuelans being deported or being, given the cue to exit the country. It doesn't matter. Whatever he does, there's an activist judge. Then yesterday, a little bit later in the day, another judge came on and said, no, he can keep the tariffs. But you get whiplash here. And I just listened to Norm Eisen, an American-hating rabid liberal who bragged about filing the first lawsuit against Donald Trump on January 20th at 12:01 p.m., 1 minute after Trump had been sworn into office. They had filed a lawsuit for God only knows what, right?
Right.
The whole intention here is to harass and hinder, and block anything meaningful from ever happening. I mean, that seems to be the goal. And at some point, Doolin, it's got to be reined in. The Supreme Court has to say, look, you can't do this. And in fact, the Supreme Court did make a decision yesterday that says judges lack the authority to block infrastructure projects because of environmental concerns. So there's one win, but seriously, what's going on? Why are lawyers so hated, Doolin?
Well, the last time it was looked at in a serious survey, there's a general disdain for the profession, which I fully understand because we have to deal with details. And the truth is, there are way too many laws. Things are very complicated. It's very hard to get anything done without somebody else coming along and suing. And the law piles on top of itself. The federal government generates thousands of pages of new law every year in terms of statutes, tens of thousands in terms of published cases. Each state government's doing the same thing in their jurisdiction. So I heard one great joke just referring to the state legislature as the felony factory because they just keep making up new laws that will get you in trouble. And it's difficult to follow. I've been doing this almost 30 years, and the stuff I think I know, I now have learned to double check because it's probably changed since I learned it. So I understand the general disdain part of the survey. But the other survey the other part was, most people actually have a positive opinion of their lawyer, whoever that might happen to be.
That's fair. I like you, Doolin. I do. I give lawyers a hard time as a generality, but I like you. So, and I've got a couple other attorneys that do. I have attorneys for specialized, that specialize in different areas. So, I have a business attorney, and
Same with me.
Let me ask you though.
I like you.
But the press in general, no, I get it. Trust me. Yeah. I don't like the press in general, and I'm living in this sewer. Anyhow, back to that 12:01 p.m. lawsuit that Norm Eisen was bragging about here a couple days ago. Is there not a provision, or should there not be a provision about frivolous lawsuits against the Trump administration? Frivolous lawsuits oftentimes get rejected, or, if somebody brings a frivolous lawsuit and it's shown to be such, they get to pay the bill. Well, why shouldn't that be the same way at the federal level?
Well, if it's truly frivolous, I just had this conversation with a couple interns in my office literally yesterday. We have a duty as attorneys, as members of the bar, to not bring frivolous lawsuits. And it comes up in some of the classes I teach too. You read the case and you have to have a discussion with the students in the class about this case should have never been brought. It was truly frivolous, and I sincerely hope that the attorney who was working for this particular plaintiff was disciplined, or maybe even in extreme cases disbarred. So it starts with we, the attorneys, with an ethical filter, and there is enforcement there. I've sadly known a couple of lawyers who got disbarred. It does happen, right? So we're not supposed to bring anything that's truly frivolous, that has no chance of winning. If it's got no chance, you got no business taking it and starting the case. But if we've got a good faith argument that we could win, if we got a good faith belief that the current law needs to be changed because it's wrong, we can bring the case. And so that's the first rule. We're talking about truly frivolous, and so it's got a definition. It's a good faith belief, meaning the professionals involved who are starting the case are supposed to be the first filter. And in some of these cases, it's easy to say they're frivolous, but they might actually have a chance of winning in some of the cases, depending on which judge they draw and whether they can convince a jury.
Or
right?
shop for.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the shopping is limited. I was in a position recently where I said, I wish I could get this one particular judge in a federal district because I've been before and I think I'd win. But you can't shop to that level to get the specific judge. You can sometimes shop for districts, though.
Well, right. When I see, and I've mentioned this before, but when I see a federal district judge in Louisiana making injunctions over what's happening to Ivy League schools, of which the closest is 2,000 miles away, it's a concern. What you're telling me doing? The lawsuits against the Trump administration are going to continue probably for the next 3.5 years. Steve Doolin, greatly appreciate you as always. It's frustrating, though, to the average American voter to see everything thwarted and stopped and blocked and harassed, but it's the country we live in.
Certainly. Enjoy your flight.
Hey, I will. Well, the Wall Street Journal, among a couple of the outlets celebrating their vindication. This outlet here, the Steve Gruber Show, also is celebrating our vindication for calling out Joe Biden's mental acuity. We talked about it for years here, saying, he's not all with us. He's not all there. Of course, he was not all with us. He was not all there. The Wall Street Journal is now saying nearly a year before books about Joe Biden's cognitive decline made headlines, the Wall Street Journal was viciously attacked for its own bombshell reporting at a time when others in the legacy media did not talk about it. Behind closed doors, Biden shows signs of slipping. A months-long investigation by reporters Annie Linsky, Siobhan Hughes, involving more than 45 sources, were either directly involved or briefed on meetings with Biden, who said he appears slower, someone who has both good moments and bad. The report, which dropped just weeks before Biden's disastrous debate performance, was swiftly met with disdain, indignation by the White House and the allies in the media as well, including people like Chuck Todd, Joe Scarborough, and all the other dishonest bastards working in mainstream media today. Shameful people who care not about the truth but attacking Donald Trump, who care not about the truth but defending their guy. Yeah. That's what it is, not anything else. Anyhow, the truth of the matter is they all knew. We all knew. Everybody knew. Anybody who could, see, knew what was going on. Meanwhile, a government employee has been arrested after sharing classified information with an FBI officer. They've been stung and stopped. A government employee right here in Virginia, arrested on Thursday, accused of attempting to share classified information with an officer or agent of a foreign government. Nathan Latch, a 28-year-old IT specialist employed by the Defense Intelligence Agency since 2019, arrested after the FBI received a tip in March of 25 that someone was willing to provide classified information to a friendly foreign government. There you have it. FAFO. It's Free for All Friday. I'll be right back. Free for All Friday from Washington, D.C. It's been a very busy week, to say the least, and I've got a lot of work to do yet today, as you know, as I'll be on Air Force One a little bit later this afternoon, headed to Pittsburgh to talk about that big investment of Nippon Steel and United States Steel with the president on that trip. Maybe we'll get an opportunity to talk to him about, hey, why are none of these big jobs and big investments like Nippon Steel, 14 billion going to Pennsylvania, a new Honda auto plant going to Indiana, a new Hyundai plant going to Arizona. Where's the big gift to Michigan? Maybe my next guest will have an idea. Jim Holcomb is the president of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. Jim, welcome back to the program. Good to have you, my friend, on a Friday.
Oh, good morning, Steve. Great to be with you.
Good to have you. Michigan Chamber, by the way, once again, the most effective lobbying organization, most effective membership organization, the way it's termed, as decided by Epic MRA and MERS News Service, both friends of this program and friends of the Chamber as well. Congratulations, 20 years running.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. It's a testament. We have a great team at the Chamber and our members who give us all the resources and the input we need to make sure we can be a strong voice for business in Michigan and hopefully turn around kind of what you're talking about. Not enough jobs coming to Michigan, not enough population growth.
I mean, look at this deal in Pennsylvania. I'll be there with the president in Pittsburgh about 5 o'clock this afternoon, I guess. Look, tens of thousands of jobs. And I understand U.S. Steel is not based in Michigan. Oh, I understand that. But there are plenty of things here. And the steel is a foundational principle of building automobiles. We build those in Michigan. Building skyscrapers. We build those in Michigan with I-beams. Reinforced concrete when you put steel mesh in. Look, steel is the backbone of an industrialized America. But we need some of that industry in Michigan, don't we?
Oh, we absolutely do. And to get it there, we need a government that's more functioning. We need to be putting in policies in place that reward the entrepreneurship. They'll let the job providers create the jobs, build the communities, and help families across the state. Business is under attack, and it's time that everyone stands up and fights back and says, no, these are the job providers. We need to support them.
Yeah, I don't know if you've noticed this. I've noticed Gretchen Whitmer. Gretchen Whitmer has been out on social media a lot lately, talking about all these great things she's done for Michigan in business and this and that. I think it's a bit self-serving, Jim, because I'm not seeing the business structure that attracts business and people and everything to Michigan. Am I missing something? I mean, I realize she has aspirations of higher office. I get it.
Yep.
But what do you think needs to be done in Michigan so that we can attract the jobs like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, and all the states around us?
Well, what we need is politicians to be more focused on policy. We need to get serious. We need to bring our spending in control because we're just spending far too much. It's not a revenue problem. It's like the U.S. government. We have a spending problem. We need to have a tax policy that rewards people for their investment and make sure that they can benefit. We need to have an education policy that makes sure our kids are learning and they're prepared to enter the workforce when they graduate. We need to have a regulatory structure that breaks down barriers, not erects hurdles, that stops businesses from expanding and growing here in Michigan. There are a lot of things that we can do, but it's going to take people being serious and actually stop politicking and start working on the policy.
I would agree with that. If you were to prioritize the top issues in Michigan right now, look, I look at states like Tennessee, no taxes on personal income there, right? Your individual income tax-free. Florida, Tennessee, New Hampshire now, 8 states, I think, now that have no tax.
Yep.
That attracts people. That attracts investment. Of course, the infrastructure challenges we face here in Michigan, the road's still not fixed. Fix the damn roads. It was a nice campaign slogan, but if you look around, I don't think we're in any better position now than we were 7 years ago when Gretchen Whitmer took office. What would your priorities be to make Michigan more attractive?
Well, I think we can look at a lot of different priorities, like I said, from tax structure to regulation to education. But what first and foremost has to happen is the process has to work. We have to elect people who are serious. Stop worrying about who's on TikTok and start worrying about what their positions are on issues. Stop letting them campaign constantly instead of being in the Capitol working. I give Matt Hull a lot of credit. He's driving an agenda. He's moving bills forward. We need to have more of that. And the budget season is right now. They need to reduce spending. We need to get our fiscal house in order and make sure we're strong moving forward for generations to come.
There's no question about that. So, look, Michigan, right? Here's something that I think is foundationally concerning to me. If you look at when Gretchen Whitmer first took office 7 years ago, roughly, the annual budget in Michigan was about $55 billion. It's $30 billion higher now. $30 billion. So we're paying more in taxes. They're talking about more taxes. They're looking for new ways to raise revenue, as they say. but it's not friendly to a company. I mean, I get it. If you're a company, you're looking around, well, where would we like to put our new headquarters? If Donald Trump's tariffs work and they're going to bring something back to the United States, for example, why would they pick us?
Yeah, well, it's not.
And I love Michigan, right?
Mhm. Well, like you said, it's not friendly to the company. It's not friendly to the employees. How are families supposed to get along when we just keep reaching in their pocket from the government, taking more and more of their money? It doesn't matter if your wages go up if the government's take is getting larger and larger. People need to keep their money. They'll invest it here in Michigan. Consumers want to buy Michigan products, and we need to have the support for the businesses here so they can make those products, deliver those services that are going to drive our economy forward. As you said, other states are taking positive steps. We're stuck in the mud and we've got to get out of it.
There's no question about that. We really do. And I mean, look, Michigan's a great place. You and I live here.
Absolutely. Yep.
You go outside, there's no more beautiful place. And if you like Four Seasons, we've got it all and in spades. I mean, Northern Michigan in the summertime, Kid Rock was right. It's the best place in the world. And everybody knows it.
Yep.
But we've got to be able to bring industry here. I remember seeing, I think it was a year ago, the governor said we won't get positive traction on population until about 2030. Well, that's not exactly the optimistic outlook I'm looking for, Jim. I'd like to see people come here now and bring innovation in industry, wouldn't you?
Yeah, well, and not only is it not optimistic, it's not acceptable. We can't look at that, say that's true. If we accept the premise, you can't accept it and let everything keep going status quo. You have to say, how do we change the paradigm? How do we move that up to 2025, 6, 7, and see the population growth occurring now? And it's by having a friendlier business climate, it's by lowering taxes, it's by having a regulatory structure that works and allows businesses to thrive so they create the good paying jobs of today and the careers of tomorrow.
There you go. All right. Well, what are your hopes for 2025? I'll give you the last word on that, Jim. As you look down the road, President of the Michigan Chamber, Jim Holcomb, here with us, and I just want to know. Look, you're an optimist because you're a business guy. Me too.
Yep.
What do you want for 25?
I want people to stay optimistic. I want more engagement. I want people to talk to their legislators. I want business owners to stand up. I want everybody to lean in a little bit more. If we all put in 1% more of our own time, we're going to get better results.
Yeah, no question about that. And look, I've been a member of the Michigan Chamber as long as I've had businesses in Michigan. So I can guarantee you these folks are looking out for you if you're in business. Jim Holcomb, appreciate what you're doing. Again, congratulations. 20 years running the most influential, the most important member-driven group in Michigan. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Have a great weekend.
You too, my friend. There you have it, Jim Holcomb. Look, Ivy and I joined the Michigan Chamber, heck, like 14 years ago. I've been a member for years and years with this company, and I had membership with companies previous to that. If you don't understand something in business, you need help, you need things explained, you need to make sure you're following the rules. It's the Michigan Chamber, michamber.com. You can find out more, and you can be on board and make sure that you're doing the best you can. michamber.com. Ivy, by the way, is around the corner. right, they're all having some fun at my expense this morning, and you know what? I deserve it. It's okay. I don't mind. Yeah, a little inside baseball if you missed it this morning. Here in D.C., real easy to catch an Uber. I mean, this town runs on Ubers, and I'm all excited today because I'm going to be on Air Force One for the first time, and to me, that's a big deal, right? It's a big deal, and so it's kind of got me preoccupied. I'm looking at the email that came in from the White House of where you have to be and what security clearances you have to go through and all that sort of thing. And I jump out of the Uber to come into the studio here to do the show this morning. And I get into the studio, I set myself down, I grab for my phone, and my phone is not here. And I go into a full-blown panic. I'm all freaked out. Anyhow, I have the most wonderful wife on the planet. Her name is Ivy. If you've ever not seen her, here she is. And I say that because Ivy stepped up in her cape and her tights, and she flew into Uber world and came back with my phone. Well, not directly in her hand, but my phone was set on my desk about 45 minutes later after she tracked down the driver. We offered him a tip, which we didn't need to do, but we did because, priceless. Anyhow, Ivy, thank you very much. You saved my life. I almost had cardiac arrest full blown right here on the studio.
Good morning, Steve. So happy I could help you. I love doing that.
Again. Look. Some people have a magic touch. That's your lot in life because you're good at it. You don't just help me. You help lots of people when they're in trouble. It's kind of what you do, right?
Very true. Yes, I do like to help others. And in this situation, when you woke me up in a panic, all I could do was say, relax. I'll call you back.
You talked him down, Mrs. Gruber. Nice job.
She did. Anyhow, so I mean, it is, but
it's not the end of the world. I mean, you do. It's just more of a headache. Anytime you lose your phone, it's a complete headache.
Well, to me, what I was thinking about. One thing I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be on Air Force One later. I don't have a phone. I don't have any way to take pictures. People want to see that. It's my first time. I am excited about it, as you know. I think it's a very cool thing to have the opportunity to travel with the president to an event. It won't be the last time, but it's the first, and I think it's pretty cool. That's all.
It is pretty cool. I think there's a small number of people that are able to get in the White House, and there's an even smaller amount of people that get to get on Air Force One, so it's really neat.
Correct.
But I do want to go through our dumbest thing that I've heard all week, because it is Free for All Friday, and you know how much I love this. So I want you to take a... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for me... I wonder how you whittle it down because we hear so many ridiculous, dumb things every week, but somehow you go, this one, you circle it.
Oh, we could spend a whole show talking about the dumbest things we've heard all week. But here we go, Anthony. Let's play it.
So how precisely does President Trump's executive order against NPR and PBS violate the First Amendment? What's the case that you're making against the Trump White House?
Well, it's interesting because the executive order is very specific in that it accuses NPR and PBS of not airing fair or unbiased news. And so it is a textbook example of viewpoint discrimination from a First Amendment standpoint. Essentially, by blocking funding to NPR and PBS, it is a form of retaliation against our organizations for airing editorial programming that the president might disagree with. We're a nonpartisan news organization. We seek
Anthony,
to be able to provide a range of
Let's
different...
come back. Did you hear? We're a nonpartisan news agency. Yeah. And let's all laugh out loud right there. Dumbest thing I've heard all week. Anybody who watches or listens to these stations know that they are definitely left-leaning, if not radical left. So I'm sorry, but the fact that she can say it with a straight face is hilarious.
Yeah. So my other part of what she said there that I think is absolutely ridiculous, nobody else gets paid by the government to run a news operation. We don't.
Well,
the big networks don't.
And
so if NPR doesn't get a check from...
In fairness, though, how much did we find out how many organizations were getting paid by these NGOs
But
funneling
that was
money?
During the Biden deal.
Right.
But my point is this. It's a violation of the First Amendment if the government doesn't pay our bills. What? That's no violation of the First Amendment. That's absolutely absurd.
Let's remember that it's
government
the
doesn't pay my
taxpayers.
bills.
Exactly.
Right.
The taxpayers are paying your bills to give us biased news. So smart. Let's just
I fully
definitely
support
back that.
the defunding. I fully support the defunding of NPR and PBS. And from what I understand, the government check only accounts for 10 or 15% of their funding. Compete like everybody else. Mm-hmm. Go out there and compete like everybody else. They've got some good programs. I like Nova, for example. I think it's a great program. you can compete with everybody else because you have good programming. And you've had all of these years of having a head start because what they have with their 15% of funding, they have a head start every year when the year starts. You and I have to sell advertising. We have to, beat the streets, shake the trees, all of that.
Well, I mean, news is a tough business because it is
It
hard to
is.
sell. One, there's a tremendous amount of blocking going for conservative media outlets to get funding, especially from large agencies. We know of someone
Like NewsGuard.
Right, NewsGuard. But we know of somebody who went to an agency and they said, I don't like your side. I'm not going to give you any money. So this is what
That's right.
conservative
And that was
outlets,
recently.
This is recently. So this is, conservative media outlets are up against a difficult time. If you look at online news platforms, they're all going bankrupt. They're all going broke, not getting woke, but going broke. And it's unfortunate.
Getting woke, going broke, yeah.
Right. I mean, unless you're this, monster news outlet like a Fox News or whatever, you're not going to. It's very hard to stay alive in news, and it's really unfortunate. I don't think a lot of people realize that. I think a lot of people who watch news are like, "Oh yeah, those people get paid millions of dollars," and
No.
What it's just, I mean, maybe at Fox News or some of those larger networks.
We do this because we like it.
It's not true for like your state news and your and some of your smaller news organizations. It's just not the case. And so I'm definitely, yes, NPR, which has already been the case, right? I mean, they brought a lawsuit to, keep Trump from, not funding
Oh, of course. I
but
say lawsuits everywhere. I mean, there were four in the last, injunctions, I should say, in the last 36 hours. 4 injunctions against whatever else. Anyhow, Ivy, thank you for returning my phone. God bless you for that. You've returned my blood pressure. Again? My blood pressure is now under control. My cardiologist, Joel Kant, thank you for that. I survived the event. All right, Ivy. Love you. Got to run.
Goodbye. Love you.
All right. It's an education whenever I'm in D.C. for sure. You know, but I'm going to be honest with you. The neighborhood where I'm staying is around Logan Circle. John Logan was a general, I believe, during the Civil War. And Logan Circle. It's much smaller than DuPont Circle, which is well known. But anyhow, the neighborhood's been just lovely. Have an Airbnb there. And it's become to feel like home over the last 10 days in many ways. You get to know the streets, start to figure out where things are. You know where the grocery store, I found 2 grocery stores, you know where those are. And it just becomes a comfort level, which is good because we'll be back in D.C. a fair amount. It connects me with the people that can affect your future. And so we continue to grow these relationships. Of course, I've had many of these for the last 20 years, but these relationships grow. And you can spend time in an office of a United States senator or a congressman, and you get to know them a little, and you shake hands or you go to lunch with them. Today on Air Force One, I get to know, by the way, I get to know the people in the press corps, which many of them are nicer than you would think. Many of them are nicer than you would think. You know, I heard stories about Sean Spicer, who was Donald Trump's first press secretary, and why he had such a rough time with it, because many of the people in the press corps were people he had known for years and years. And when he got to the podium, they would just treat him horribly. And then as soon as like a press event was over, they'd come to his office and say, hey, sorry about that. That's what our network wants. You know, we're good friends. It's no big deal. But it was a big deal to him. It hurt him. And it bothered him that people that he thought were his friends were so ruthlessly attacking him when he was on the podium. Kind of a thankless job. Caroline Levitt, by the way, I tip my hat to her again. She is remarkable, does a great job up there. 27 years old, I think, and a new mom. I don't know how long she'll last. I think that the job can really drain people, but she does a great job. So it's all about relationships. We'll be doing that today. I will update you on social media. Follow me on X and Instagram and all those places. We'll have some Air Force One action for you from my maiden voyage here later today. Fight the good fight, my friends. Keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is The Steve Gruber Show. And remember, only you can save America.